Chapter 27. Destroy me a roof. Bring me wenches with winches. We're so out of here. Well, I say exploded. More accurately, the roof crumpled inward, as roofs tend to do when a bronze dragon smashes into them. Girders bent. Rivets popped. Sheets of corrugated metal groaned and folded with a sound like colliding aircraft carriers. Festus plummeted through the gap, his wings unfolding to slow his descent. He seemed no worse for wear from his time in suitcase form, but judging from the way he'd blowtorched the audience in the stands, I guessed he was feeling a bit cranky. Wild centaurs stampeded, trampling the mortal mercenaries in Germani. The Blemier clapped politely, perhaps thinking the dragon was part of the show, until a wave of flames reduced them to dust. Festus flew on his own fiery victory lap around the track, torching race cars as a dozen silvery ropes uncoiled from the roof, lowering the hunters of Artemis into the arena like a clutter of spiders. I've always found spiders fascinating creatures, despite what Athena thinks. If you ask me, she's just jealous of their beautiful faces. Boom! More hunters remained on the roofline with their bows drawn, laying down suppressing fire as their sisters lowered themselves to the field. As soon as the repellers hit the turf, they drew bows, swords, and knives and leapt into battle. Alaric, along with most of the Emperor's Germani, charged to meet them. At the goal post, Meg McCaffrey worked frantically to cut Peaches free from his ropes. Two hunters dropped next to her. They had a hurried conversation with lots of pointing, something along the lines of, "Hello, we're your friends. You're going to die. Come with us." Clearly agitated, Meg glanced across the field in my direction. I yelled, "Go!" Meg allowed the hunters to grab her and Peaches. Then the hunters slapped some sort of mechanisms on the side of their belts and shot back up the ropes as if the laws of gravity were more recommendations. Motorized winches, I thought. A very nice accessory. If I live through this, I'm going to recommend that the hunters of Artemis make t-shirts that read, "Wenches with winches." I'm sure they'll love that idea. The closest group of hunters charged in my direction, meeting the Germani in battle. One of the hunters looked familiar, with choppy black hair and dazzling blue eyes. Instead of the usual gray camo of Artemis's followers, she wore jeans and a black leather jacket that was held together with safety pins, and had patches from the Ramones and dead Kennedys. A silver tiara glinted on her forehead. On one arm she brandished a shield imprinted with a gruesome visage of Medusa. Not the original, I suspected, since that would have turned me to stone, but a good enough replica to make even the Germani cower and back away. The girl's name came to me. Talia Grace. Artemis's lieutenant, the leader of the hunters, had personally come to rescue me. "Save Apollo!" she yelled. My spirits soared. "Yes, thank you!" I wanted to yell. Finally, someone has their priorities straight. I felt for a moment as if the world were back in its proper order. Commodus sighed in exasperation. "I did not schedule this for my games." He looked around, apparently just realizing he had only 2 guards, and Latursi left to command. The rest were already in combat. "Latursis, get out there!" he snapped. "Slow them down while I go charge. I can't fight in a racing outfit. This is ridiculous." Lit's eyes twitched. "Sir, you're about to relieve me of my duty by killing me? All right. Go sacrifice yourself. Prove you're more useful than that idiot father of yours. Honestly, Midas has the golden touch, and he still couldn't do anything right. You're no better." The skin around Latursi's ostrich bruise reddened, as if the bird were still standing on his face. "Sire, with respect..." Commodus's hand shot out like a rattlesnake, clamping around the swordsman's throat. "Respect?" the Emperor hissed. "You talk to me of respect!" Arrows sailed toward the Emperor's remaining guards. Both Germani fell with lovely new silver-feathered nose piercings. A third missile hurtled toward Commodus. The Emperor yanked Latursis into its path, and the arrow point erupted from the front of Lit's thigh. The swordsman screamed. Commodus dropped him in disgust. "Do I have to kill you myself? Really?" He raised his knife. Something inside me, no doubt a character flaw, made me feel pity for the wounded Cornhusker. "Livia," I said. The elephant understood. She trunk-smacked Commodus upside the head, knocking him flat on the turf. Latursis fumbled for the hilt of his sword. Finding it, he jabbed the point into the Emperor's exposed neck. Commodus howled, clamping his hand over the wound. Judging from the amount of blood, I deduced that the cut, sadly, had missed his jugular. Commodus's eyes blazed. "Oh, Latursis, you traitor! I'll kill you slowly for that one!" But it wasn't meant to be. The closest Germani, seeing their emperor bleeding on the ground, ran to his aid. Livia scooped up Latursis and backed away from the barbarians as they closed ranks around Commodus, forming a shield wall. Their bristling polearms pointed at us. The Germani looked ready to counterattack, but before they could, a line of flames rained down between our 2 groups. Festus the dragon landed next to Livia. The Germani hastily retreated while Commodus screamed, "Pull me down! I need to kill these people!" Atop Festus, Leo saluted me like a fellow fighter pilot. "What's up, Lester Populus? Joe got your emergency signal. She sent us back right away." Talia Grace jogged over with two of her hunters. We need to evacuate. We'll be overrun in a few minutes. She pointed to the end zone, where the survivors from Festus's fiery victory lap were starting to form ranks. 100 assorted centaurs, cynocephali, and demigods from the imperial household. I glanced to the sidelines. Leading into the lowest tier of seats was a ramp, possibly wide enough for an elephant. I'm not leaving Livia behind. Take Lacherces, and take the throne of memory. I unslung the chair, thankful again for its light weight, and tossed it across to Leo. That throne has to get back to Georgie. I'll ride Livia out one of the mortal exits. The elephant dumped Lacherces onto the turf. The cornhusker groaned and pressed his hands against the arrow in his leg. Leo frowned. Apollo? I will not leave this noble elephant behind to be tortured, I insisted. No, I get that. Leo pointed at Lyd. But why would we take this fool? He tried to kill me in Omaha. He threatened Calypso at the zoo. Can't I just let Festus stomp him? No! I wasn't sure why I felt so strongly about it. Commodus betraying the swordsman made me feel almost as angry as Nero manipulating Meg, well, yes, Zeus abandoning me in the mortal world for the third time. He needs healing. He'll behave himself, won't you, Lyd? Lacherces grimaced in pain, blood soaking through his tattered jeans, but he managed a slight nod. Leo sighed. Whatever, man. Festus, we're taking this bleeding idiot with us, okay? But if he gets uppity en route, then feel free to chuck him against the side of a skyscraper. Festus creaked in agreement. I'll go with Apollo. Talia Grace climbed up behind me on the elephant, which fulfilled a daydream I'd once had about the pretty hunter, though I hadn't imagined it quite happening this way. She nodded at one of her comrades. Iphigenia, get the rest of the hunters out of here. Go! Leo grinned and slung the throne of memory across his back. See y'all back home, and don't forget to pick up some salsa. Festus flapped his metallic wings. The dragon grabbed Lacherces and launched himself skyward. The hunters activated their winches. They ascended as the first wave of angry spectators arrived on the field, throwing spears and vuvuzelas that fell clattering back to earth. When the hunters were gone, the crowd turned their attention to us. Livia, I said, how fast can you run? The answer, fast enough to evade an armed mob, especially with Talia Grace on her back, shooting arrows and brandishing her shield of terror at anyone who got too close. Livia seemed to know the corridors and ramps of the stadium. They'd been designed for large crowds, which made them equally convenient for elephants. We made a few turns around the souvenir kiosks, barreled through a service tunnel, and finally emerged onto a loading dock on South Missouri Street. I'd forgotten how wonderful sunlight felt. Crisp, fresh air on a late winter day. But granted, it wasn't as exhilarating as driving the sun chariot, although it was a darn sight better than the snake-infested sewers of Commode Palace. Livia lumbered down Missouri Street. She turned into the first blind alley she saw, then stomped and shook. I was pretty sure I understood her message. Take off this stupid chainmail. I translated for Talia, who shouldered her bow. I don't blame her. Poor elephant. Women warriors should travel light. Livia lifted her trunk as if to say thank you. We spent the next 10 minutes de-armoring the elephant. Once we were done, Livia gave Talia and me a group hug with her trunk. My adrenaline rush was fading, leaving me feeling like a deflated inner tube. I sank down with my back against the brick wall and shivered in my damp clothes. Talia produced a canteen from her belt. Instead of offering it to me first, as would have been proper, she poured some liquid into her cupped hand and let Livia drink. The elephant slurped down 5 handfuls, not much for a big animal, but she blinked and grunted in a satisfied way. Talia took a sip herself, then handed the canteen to me. Thanks, I mumbled. I drank, and my vision cleared immediately. I felt as if I just had 6 hours of sleep and a hot, good meal. I stared in amazement at the battered canteen. What is this? It's not nectar. No, Talia agreed. It's moon water. I dealt with the hunters of Artemis for millennia, but I'd never heard of moon water. I recalled Josephine's story about bootlegging in the 1920s. Do you mean moonshine? As in liquor? Talia laughed. No, it's not alcoholic, but it is magic. Lady Artemis never told you about this stuff, huh? It's like an energy drink for hunters. Men rarely ever get a taste. I poured a tiny bit into my palm. The stuff looked like regular water, though perhaps more silver, as if it had been blended with a trace amount of liquid mercury. I considered taking another sip, then decided it might take my brain to vibrate the point of liquefying. I passed back the canteen. Have you talked to my sister? Talia's expression turned serious. In a dream a few weeks ago. Lady Artemis said that Zeus has forbidden her from seeing you. She's not even supposed to give us orders to help you. I had suspected as much, but having my fears confirmed would have overwhelmed me with despair if not for the moon water. Its energy burst kept me humming right along over the deeper emotions, like wheels skimming across the top of loose sand. "You're not supposed to help me," I said. "And yet you're here. Why?" Talia gave me a coy smile that would have made Britomardus proud. "We were just in the area. Nobody ordered us to help. We've been searching for a particular monster for months now, and..." She hesitated. "Well, that's another story. The point is we were passing through. We helped you the way we'd help any time we got in danger." She didn't mention anything about Britomardus finding the hunters and urging them to come here. I decided to play her little game of let's pretend that never happened. "Can I guess another reason?" I asked. "I think you decided to help me because you like me." The corner of Talia's mouth twitched. "What makes you say that?" "Oh, come now. The first time we met, you said I was hot. Don't think I didn't hear that comment." I was gratified to see her face turn red. "I was younger then," she said. "I was a different person. I just spent several years as a pine tree. My vision and reasoning were impaired from sap damage." "Ouch," I complained. "That's harsh." Talia punched my arm. "You need an occasional dose of humility. Artemis says so all the time." "My sister is sneaky, deceptive..." "Watch it," Talia warned. "I am her lieutenant." I crossed my arms in a petulant Meg sort of way. "Artemis never told me about Moonwater. She never told me about the way station. Makes me wonder how many other secrets she's hiding." "Maybe a few." Talia's tone was carefully nonchalant. "But you've gotten to see more this week than most hunters ever do. You should feel lucky." I stared down the alley, thinking that first New York alley I'd fallen into as Lester Papadopoulos. So much had changed since then, yet I was no closer to being a god. In fact, the memory of being a god seemed more distant than ever. "Yes," I grumbled. "Very lucky." "Come on." Talia offered me a hand. "Commodus won't wait long before he launches a reprisal. Let's get our elephant friend back to the way station."